Flesh and Blood, yeah, which is actually going through a great time. Fab is awesome right now. It's been a while since I've played a game where I feel like people are generally really happy with the spot that the game is in, both meta wise and the cadence of releases and stuff. The cost of the game it's been a slow process, and because there's always like a 1 year lag between when a decision is made and when it hits store shelves. I mean, minimum 6 months. But I don't know, like the affordability of the game has gotten a lot better. There were some really good reprints in the last set that made a lot of decks much more affordable. There's still cards that I think are way too fucking expensive. There's still staples that are way too expensive. But I think that they've been making some real steps in the right direction. Also, I thought that the last set was a ton of fun. I think I mentioned it. Some of the more competitive players around me, I heard at least one person call it like a bad set. And I was like, that is the most like comp-brained... I get it's a competitive game, but that's the most comp-brained thing I've ever heard. Like, I'm actually totally fine if a new set comes out and doesn't power creep the fuck out of the format and like fuck up the game for a while just so that like you can go play it and win in tournaments. I'm sorry that there isn't like a clear best deck in format for the moment because the meta is actually fairly even with a couple small outliers. Well, not necessarily small, but like there's the gap in power level is nowhere close to what it was even like a year ago between the best decks and like the next tier or whatever. Like the game's doing pretty well, and on the affordability front, oh, and not even to say that the new heroes were bad or anything. Like I thought the set was really fun and had a lot of fun mechanics and fun heroes with unique playstyles and gameplay concepts. It just felt like a fun set. And I was like, cool. I'm happy with that. And the affordability of the game has actually increased dramatically with the introduction of a new format called Silver Age. So Silver Age is like maybe one of the best things to happen to the game in a long time. Because it is it's a culmination of the ongoing experiments to come up with a more accessible, like lower. It's like a lot of the coalescing of a lot of things have all come down to both like officially and fan made have all originated, all resulted in Sage as it's being called, because SA isn't a great. It's not a great acronym in this day and age. Shout out to Games Workshop, who keep referring to command points as CP over and over and over again for like 30 years. 40 years. 40,000 years. So Fab's most dominant format for the longest time has been Classic Constructed, CC, which is now like, it's, I guess what you'd call the closest to the standard format. Heroes start at an average of 40 life. You have a 60 card main deck. You can have 3 copies per card. Have at it. When the game launched, there was an alternative format called Blitz. Blitz used young versions of heroes, which start with about half the life total of their adult versions, but for the most part are basically the same. So like half starting life, smaller deck sizes, and that was basically that was Blitz. And Blitz had like some problems, and it used to be, when the game was new, a really crucial way to get new players into it, because the game is kind of complicated and it hits you with a lot of info when you're first learning it. Like, it's kind of overwhelming how much, if you come from any other card game, the amount that you have to think on any given turn of Flesh and Blood immediately and how many options are available to you is kind of overwhelming. And so the fact that, like, a regular game of CC tends to take like 50 minutes. Having something that was much faster, where you could crank out like 2 or 3 games in that same amount of time, depending on the matchup, was really helpful for the game. Also, the fact that decks were only 40 cards instead of 60, and we were limited to 2 copies per deck, meant that decks were just, you needed less cards, which is both that's like an access and affordability thing. I only need 2 copies of this card rather than 3, which means I don't have to buy 3 copies. Spending $50 on 2 cards, for a bit of an extreme example, feels a lot better than spending $75 for 3 copies. The problems with Blitz kind of became more apparent as time went on, however. Namely that the game is just not designed around it. The cards that come out are not designed around starting with 20 health. And the format is way more volatile. And honestly, I think in many ways it eventually evolved into kind of a bad first impression for new players. Because the game is so much more volatile and explosive, it punishes mistakes a lot harder, and specifically mistakes on some really core, but also difficult to grasp concepts. Like, difficult to grasp at a basic level. Defense in Fab is something that's really difficult to get a handle on, especially when you're starting out. Like, attacking and doing your combos you can eventually get the hang of, but when to defend takes a lot more presence of mind and understanding the game state. It usually takes more experience in a certain matchup. Knowing what's possible, what other heroes like to do. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you have to learn and get used to and start thinking about when you shift into defense. And in Blitz, I mean, again, like, there are a number of heroes who can easily deal, like, or at least threaten, like, 17 damage. 12 to 16 damage, maybe 17, in a single turn. And if you block some of that, but maybe there's certain choke points where, like, oh, I needed to block that instead of that. And not understanding where those choke points are is so punishing at 20 life. At 40 life, there's a lot more room. Like, the game's just going to go on longer. There's more room for one of you to brick your hand. There's more room for something to go wrong. Maybe someone takes a less optimal turn. You just have a little more time to kind of get into the swing of things and learn some of the patterns that the enemy plays. So Blitz has kind of fallen off in most people in my community, at least. I know there's some strong Blitz communities, but most people don't enjoy it too much. And we have, like, voted it out of the weekly event at least once. Like, no, we just want to play CC. There's another format which is intended to be the low power format, or at least I would say not the low power necessarily, but the low-cost format called Commoner. There are 4, basically, rarities of cards in Fab: Common, Rare, Majestic, and Legendary. Legendaries are almost exclusively for equipment pieces. And Commoner, as the name might imply, is composed of all commons, which are super cheap and abundant and not hard to get your hands on at all, which sounds great as a low-cost format. Unfortunately, I've played Commoner before, and it's not that fun. Again, there are Commoner defenders. The problem is that the average power level of a Commoner card is so low that it's like if you had to play Street Fighter, but only with, like, your light and medium buttons. And that's it. No specials or supers. No command normals. Just lights and mediums. Like, the really, really basic bread and butters of your character or your hero or your deck or whatever. And a lot of people just didn't like Commoner because it wasn't that fun. It was just kind of dry. It was also a young hero format. And it wasn't fun. Like, the one time that we ran Commoner at my store, I was playing Azalea, who's a ranger. And Rangers, specifically the Azalea deck, is all about, or my version of it, the build that I play, is about building up having an arrow and then buffing it and playing like 3 or 4 other cards to buff the power of the arrow, and then just fling a really strong arrow at them with a bunch of on-hit effects that get added on top by your different buff spells. And it's a lot of fun. I like shooting. She's a pile bunker character. Some of the best, like, bread and butter, like, pump spells, as they're called, the Lace series, Lace with so-and-so, like, debuff, they're all rares. Not broken by any means, not expensive, not hard to come by, just rares. So they're not playable in Commoner. And, like, man, when you can't play with, like, the Lace series or some of the other good rare pumps or arrows, it's like, woof. It feels really dry and low power. And for what reason? Like, why? If I could run rares, it wouldn't even be a problem. So they've had this kind of issue where these two formats have been sort of struggling. Also, as a beginner format, Blitz... Okay, like, Blitz has the Living Legend system, and I actually like the Living Legend system. The rotation system where heroes retire once they win a certain number of events, right? I think it's a cool system. But for a new player, it kind of sucks to be like, hey, so in like a fighting game, you're like, yeah, just pick whatever character immediately interests you. Like, who do you think looks cool or looks fun or has an interesting gimmick or something like that? Just pick whoever. And in Fab, you'd be like, yeah, just pick whoever. And then they'd be like, sure, how about this hero? And you're like, they're actually Living Legend. You can't pick them. They're not legal in the regular format. They're not legal in Blitz. And they're like, okay, how about this? They're not legal either. They're also LL. And in order to find out the Living Legend leaderboards, because also, like, you maybe don't want to pick a hero that's really close to going to Living Legend, like really close, like in the 900s or something. Because depending on how fast they're gaining points, you're just like, okay, well, I might invest into them, and then in 2 months they could be gone. If they're gaining points really fast, that is. Which, again, doesn't happen very often, but it has in the past. I talked, like, way back when Aurora went to Living Legend in 6 fucking months. Or something, or no, what was it? Yeah, it was like genuinely 6 or 7 months, which is really, really fast. Because she was really good and really easy. She wasn't like the best deck, she was just really easy, so a lot of people got top placings with her and just farmed points for her. Whereas potentially the actual stronger hero, who was more difficult to play, topped a lot of events, like got number 1, but there were fewer representatives because it was just a more difficult deck. So you'd have to, like, send them to this website with a kind of clunky spreadsheet, the official website that's just like, it's just like a CSS table where they have the points and the leaderboard and stuff, and there isn't like a visual reference. It's just the hero's name. And it's just like it's just kind of clunky and annoying, and also requires you as a brand new player to sort of pay attention to the competitive meta and what's popular and what people are playing and what people are topping with and like how fast a hero is gaining points. And it's just like, it's fine once you're decently invested into the game, but for like a buy-in, it's kind of annoying and like a little much to ask. So all this culminates in the new format, Silver Age, which is basically replacing Blitz and Commoner. Silver Age is basically like Commoner, but you can run rares. Now, there was another format that was fan-made called Clash that was very similar to this, but you could also run, in addition to, you could run commons, rares, and any specialization cards, which are cards that can only be run by a specific hero that it names. For Sage, they have decided not to include that, which I think is, I think it's actually probably a good idea, because a lot of the specs, like, genuinely, I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to play, like, Azalea, because she's been living legend for a while, a little bit in CC, and I want to play her again. If I'm going to play her in Sage, let me just imagine in my mind the Azalea deck. Now take out all the everything above rare, but then put the specializations back in regardless of rarity. That's almost the same deck. It's genuinely, it's almost the same deck, with a few other power cards taken out that I would just replace with something else that's decent. But still, like, the most fucked up, brutal parts of, like, attacks and spells in that deck are, like, specs. So I do actually agree with just limiting it, not including the specs, right? So the other big thing, so number one, including rares is a huge win, because rares add a lot of the flavor to various classes and talents. Rares are where you get the cards that are a little stronger. They've got a little more, like, ooh, this is like a cool effect. But they're not like, oh, the big power card like you'd find in Majestics, where that can, like, totally warp the game once they're played. Like, create a game warping amount of tempo or something like that. There's some fucked up Majestics, right? And when you can play, everyone can play with Majestics, it's not as bad. Rares just provide, like, a nice middle ground where it's just lower powered. And also, rares are not hard to find. They're fairly abundant. You can get, it's not difficult to invest in some rares. You probably have if you just open packs from going to your regular events, you probably got a decent collection of rares anyway. If you're pulling for classes that you play. And so this is it's a lower power and a lower cost format. I haven't seen a single Sage deck that's more than $10 total on TCG Player. So what you can do is you can go to Fabrary, which is like a community created website. It's a card database, and it's also a deck building database. That's great. It's also got, like, integration with some of the official apps. It's a great tool. It's a great resource. And you can build a deck in Fabrary, and they have a tab that shows you the cost of the deck, like a breakdown of every single card at its cheapest and most expensive printing. And there is a button that you can just click that says just order every single card on TCG Player. At least ones that are available, which most cards should have at least one listing. So assuming that you have literally no cards and you're starting from zero, you can get a completely functional, competitive Sage deck for $10. And most of that is honestly shipping. It's actually crazy how friendly of a format it is. And people have been going, like, everyone I know has been going nuts about, like, oh, I'm going to play this. I want to build this. Everyone has, like, 5 different decks that they want to build. And even me, like, I'm super hyped to play Azalea again. I was playing her at a recent Armory night at my local store. And it was a lot of fun. It felt real good to be doing my Ranger combos once more. But there's other decks that I wanna check out. That's like, oh man, I've never played a Guardian. I think maybe an Assassin would be kind of fun to build. Maybe Fang. Fang's got cool cards. Fang's got that one really awesome looking card. I think it's a spec. Hang on. I'm gonna look it up. It's such a cool, the artwork is so cool. The artwork is so cool. It's like for a super. Hang on. Yeah, it's called Fire and Brimstone. And it literally looks like that art alone makes me want to play the hero. It looks like he's doing a super move. And And it's a rare. That's awesome. I don't even know if that's run in a lot of Fang decks. But there's just stuff that I've been thinking up, and like it's really easy to put these things together. Again, small deck sizes, like 40 cards, 2 copies per card. And yeah, it's like super accessible. It's really cheap. And there's a ton of fun rares that maybe don't get the chance to shine just because there's Majestics that do their job better. They also banned, it's got a pretty, I like the ban list so far. They basically took out a lot of the more omnipresent generic defensive cards that are more necessary in a format like CC, where the power level is higher. But in this one might be just a little too obnoxious. The one problem that the card pool has at the moment is that equipment is pretty limited. So I've been running into this problem building Azalea, where I have pretty decent choices for common and rare equipment slots until I get to the leg slot, and I realize that there is just not a single piece of ranger equipment that is below majestic rarity. They're all majestics and legendaries, which means that I have to go to the generic pool, and generic armor is like intentionally not very good. There's a few like legendary pieces that are decent, but in general, generic armor is meant for like draft. It's meant for like really low power, like we're expecting the decks to be kind of bad. And most of them are just not that great and not that applicable, or they were kind of designed for very specific draft environments and they weren't expecting you to be putting these in real decks. So everyone has been swarming around the best generic equipment set, which is called Blade Beckoners. There's one for each slot. And yeah, I guess I just run Blade Beckoners boots, or what is it? Greaves? I forget what it's called. Yeah, it blocks for 2 if you're defending a weapon. Otherwise, it blocks for 1. And then it explodes after it defends. That's the best you're going to get out of the generics. Apparently, the next set is going to have a substantial amount of support for Sage, and there's going to be a lot of stuff. I don't know. I don't think they said like printed specifically into Silver Age and not intended for like the wider game. But I kind of just assume that means they're going to print better generic equipment. or some more like some easier like staple pieces and stuff, or stuff for other classes. The other thing that I think makes it a great format is that it's an eternal format. There's no rotation. There's no living legend system, which means every hero from the game's whole history that has a young variant, because it's a young hero format, and not every hero has a young version, which is honestly good in a couple cases. Every hero is playable. Every young hero in the game is playable. Oh, actually not true. Because the vast majority of heroes, their young versions are commons. There's a few that are rares. Heroes actually do have rarity. It's usually not an issue. Like, it's not hard to get a hero card. But some of them are printed at higher rarities because you're just not meant to be playing. Like, they're meant for like really specific formats. They don't want you to get like flooded with them. They need to put young heroes at really low rarities for the most part, like anyone from a main set, because those are meant to be draft. And so you need to be, young heroes are used in draft. So there has to be an acceptable number of each. Like, if you open an entire box to do an 8-person draft, you should have more than enough heroes for everyone to be covered based on whoever they want to play. So that's why they're at such a low rarity, and they will appear in the token slot so often at the back of the pack. Or the front, whatever. No, it's the back. So some of them are printed at like majestic rarity for one reason or another. They're not legal. They are not legal. They might print legal rare versions of them. I don't know. But for the most part, basically everyone, the vast majority of heroes from the game are playable in Sage and will be forever. And people are also really excited about that because it suddenly makes a bunch of cards that have been essentially out of the format for a while playable. So people are really excited about the two heroes I saw people the most jazzed about were Icelander, who is an ice wizard. She plays kind of like a tempo-y control strategy where she gives the opponent these things called frost. If she plays an ice card on their turn at like instant speed, she gives you a frostbite. The opponent a frostbite, which makes your next thing cost 1 more for each frostbite you have. It's annoying and I hate it, but that's how she plays. Some people love doing that shit. Just slow the game down essentially, and then like swing with a little bit of arcane damage every turn. And then Dromai, who is a draconic illusionist. So she's got a really cool theme. Illusionists are the main summoner class of the game, one of the two, the other being necromancers, of which there's only one. And being a draconic illusionist, her whole deal is that she makes dragons out of ash. So she generates like these ash tokens, and then she has cards that summon dragons where she puts the card on top of the ash. And all of her dragons have different effects and they buff each other. And she just plays she's got the Dragon Zoo strategy. And then she rushes you down with a million little dragon attacks. And some of them give her utility options and stuff like that. Cool character. Cool hero. And of course, I was really excited to play Azalea. I was having a lot of fun doing my ranger combos, like I said. And honestly, most of the deck is pretty intact playstyle-wise, which is really nice. It feels like I'm playing the hero again. Everyone's really stoked about it. I think that we were talking about maybe having at least one of the stores that we go to have it doing Silver Age for just a whole month. Every week, just doing Silver Age, because people are that excited about it. I think it's going to be a new, really popular format, and it's probably what I would recommend to new people getting into the game. In February, they're going to be releasing precons, so there's going to be 10... I think there's 10 decks total. They're going to do them in waves of 5 that are pre-constructed decks for Silver Age. They haven't revealed the deck lists. They have claimed that they are competitive. I think the tagline they were going with was the $20 ticket to the $1 million world tour, or $2 million. I forget how big the prize pool is. And so sometimes, pre-constructed decks, they can be a toss-up. There's some good ones, there's some bad ones, but in general, I think that anything for Sage is probably going to be... Anything you could throw together is probably decent. Unless it's you are literally just stuffing complete useless garbage in there. They're probably going to be pretty good. So that's really cool. It's nice to be playing a game where everything's just kind of going well. Where everything's just kind of running smoothly. People are happy with the balance and the format of the game. Excuse me. There's a cool new game mode. And yeah. Fun times in Flesh and Blood.